Well, good morning and welcome to Elevenses. I'm right. We seem to have a dodgy connection this morning. Right, microphone is going in and out, and for some reason, although I am on Ethernet connection, I'm not getting a good connection. I suspect it must be up at the server end. Hopefully you can hear me now, and we're not going to flick in and out again like we just did. Alright, so anyway, on with today's show. It's show number 425. It's Wednesday the 1st of May, so it's the final month of spring. Still doesn't really feel like it too much. Aaron's looked in. Good to see you, Aaron. What have we got for you in today's show? Well, a fairly appalling story about a driver who was texting moments before she ran into the back of a motorcycle. Okay, thanks for letting me know that you can hear me. That's on both on YouTube and Facebook, which is good news. MAG have pulled out of FEMA, claiming that they have been betrayed, a gutless betrayal on electric bikes. Lower Saxony, on the other hand, has reversed a bike noise ban, which shows what the power of standing together can do. Are insurance costs falling? That is a question that we'll ask. I've seen a statement to say that they are. I'll be surprised if they do. Mine's due for renewal any moment, so I'll let you know whether it's gone up or down. I can put money on that it won't have gone down. Arc Vector, the British motorcycle manufacturer of premium priced electric bikes, has gone into liquidation again. The GT50 is actually the UK's first road legal step scooter, complete with number plates, lights and everything else you need to ride it. And then today's in-depth feature, we'll have a look at why we really do need to keep a good rear view awareness when we're actually slowing down or stopped. So that's the in-depth feature today at the end of the show. Right, so you pull yourselves up a chair, settle yourselves down for the next 30 minutes or so. It won't be too long a show today. I'm still feeling a little bit under the weather with COVID. So, right, that's what we have for you in today's show. Now, before we go any further, I just want to give you a quick heads up on a course review from Andy. Now, Andy was looking for a confidence boost. I specifically run a course for that. He was looking for 3 areas: slow control, evasive manoeuvres, cornering on tighter radius bends too. And he had an eye on his upcoming holiday to the Picos in northern Spain, which was due to happen a couple of weeks after the course. He's actually out. He's just left, I believe. So here's what Andy actually said. He said, I booked a one-day course with Kevin to focus on cornering skills, slow control and emergency manoeuvres. I was very impressed with the whole thing, from the informative emails before the course and the approximate 1 hour pre-ride online briefing, the day itself, and then the follow-up online briefing, also around an hour, and assessments and follow-up documents. Kevin is clearly a very experienced and knowledgeable rider, and the advice and tips he gave me were very useful and informed. He also provides a radio link so he can direct the training in the ride. As well as being impressed with the quality of the training, I thought it was excellent value for money, and I wouldn't hesitate in recommending him. So that is what Andy had to say. Just give you a quick overview of how I run courses like this. I mean, basically what we do is we start with an initial exchange of emails. That allows me to determine your background, your experience, your bike, and what you want to be able to achieve at the end of the course. And that is really vital, because we want to get the course tailored to the trainee. Unlike the IM ROSPA kind of training where you you know what you're going to get when you sign up for the course. This is the other way round. It really is client-centered. Now, since 2020, all my courses now start with an online briefing. That lasts about an hour. It's not only a relaxed way to introduce ourselves to each other, and to confirm that the on-road session is going to deliver what the trainee wants, but it also allows us plenty of time to deliver the theory side of the practical work we're going to do out on the road in a nice relaxed atmosphere. You know, you can sit in your comfy chair with a cup of tea, rather than sort of doing it all at the side of the road, or, you know, even at a noisy cafe. It's much easier to do it online. Now, we actually pushed the course 24 hours backwards to avoid some poor weather, and that's another feature of my training. I believe you should get the best chance to enjoy both the roads and the weather if you're going to exploit the training to the full. So if the weather looks rubbish, I will suggest that we push it back, unless of course what you'd want to do is ride in bad weather and learn how to deal with it. Then we can find the worst weather we possibly can. But generally speaking, if you want to learn how to corner or do anything technical, if it's dry roads, it's a darn sight easier to learn the basics. So on the day, we headed out over the Chilterns, down into the Thames Valley. I was able to find plenty of time to ride the tighter, twistier roads that we have out on those roads. We've also found time to tackle slow riding. Also introduced the concept of counterweighting, which we can then apply to tight corners, side roads, mini roundabouts, that kind of thing, but also tight bends out on the open road. We worked on emergency stops and swerves. Now, there was an unexpected road closure after our quick lunch stop. That forced me on a lengthy detour. What's really frustrating is that detour hadn't been there 48 hours later when I'd actually driven down some of the route. Anyway, we ended up on the session. We still had time to find one of my secret hairpin bends and to ride up and down it, just to see how the earlier work that we put in on slow control, tight corners and all the rest of it can actually transfer to those rather more technical turns. Now, the third interactive element of the session, it comprises a follow-up online debrief. Andy gets there he had the chance to review some of the on-bike footage that I'd shot. You can see that in the picture there. The camera's a bit steamed up there actually, but still clear enough to see what we were doing. He gets to ask questions and I get to answer them. I can also ask him questions to confirm that he got the knowledge that I wanted to deliver, and he got an honest and objective assessment of his ride using my unique circular assessment chart, which you can download from my Coffee page for free instantly, and that also lasted round about an hour. And last but not least, Andy gets access to the briefing, the debrief and the on-bike footage online, which he can then review in his own time. So I think for between 6-7 hours of mixed mode training, this course actually lasted a little bit longer thanks to the detour. I don't think that's bad value at all for £265 for the day's training. If you want the link to his review, it's up on Google. I shall give it to you. You can find it. I'll just put the link up. There it is. And don't forget, if you're too far away for an on-road course, I do offer online sessions, so you can cover the theory. And the unique point about these is I give you practical exercises you can take out on the road to confirm that you're doing the right things. Right, okay, we've got Kevin here, Aaron, Kevin, he just says, when looking behind the USA, the train riders keep to the sides of lanes when stopping turning. They think the UK centre lane position is dangerous. The one thing I would say about that is that, as I was talking about with the vehicle detection systems, it seems it only works when there is something right in front of the vehicle. It seems that the keeping to the side of the lane is actually potentially risky for motorcycles, and I will be talking about some strategies to deal with that later. Aaron says, fit the course to the trainee rather than fit the trainee into the course. Absolutely, every single time. And Sue has looked in and said good morning. Right, anyway, good. Thanks for those comments there. On with the weather. Why is that not moving? Oh, for heaven's sake. I should have the picture of the weather up there and it's not working. Right, so first day of May today, isn't it? The should bring a mix of sunshine and showers. The Southern Wales, south of England, expect thundery rain later in the day. Thursday, it does look like, well, I'm just trying to get the graphics sorted out again. The southwest will see spells of heavy rain, potentially thundery, and there will be scattered afternoon thunderstorms. So that's Thursday. Mostly cloudy across the east, sunny out to the northwest and across East Anglia. Best of the sun looks like he's been in Scotland. Now, on Friday, Scotland will be mostly dry. There'll be plenty of showers. Across Wales and England, particularly over the east, as there'll be a low pressure zone over the North Sea feeding some showers into the eastern parts, and they could again be frequent, heavy and thundery. By Saturday, it looks likely that the far south and north will see the best of the sunshine, but rain will be arriving from the southwest again. Right, and on to the news from around the world. Now I'm just still struggling to get the graphic up. I don't know why the things have gone wrong this morning. It's incredible. I spent hours setting this up and it all works, and I'm right up until the moment I go online. Right, so this is the weather graphic, and that's still the wrong graphic. Oh, for heaven's sake. Alright, I'm going to just give up on that for the moment. I don't know why that is not working. Right, okay, so I will try and find the relevant graphics as I want them. Now, the first news story is a fairly tragic one, but it is a stark illustration of the dangers, first of all, of allowing yourself to be distracted by a mobile phone, but also not watching what's going on behind you, because an unnamed driver has been convicted of causing death through negligence and negligence in traffic. The 30-year-old woman was fined just over 41,000 kroner, which is just over £3,000, and sentenced to 2 years probation. Now, the crash happened in Sweden, and the victim was a 24-year-old German motorcyclist, one Tobias Durst, and he was travelling the country. He was aiming to reach North Cape, which is at the far north end of Norway, and his plan had been to ride to that most northerly point of Europe. It's the furthest point accessible by road. Now, he apparently stopped at the rear of a queue of roadworks when the woman ploughed into the back of him. A witness reported to the police that the woman appeared not to have seen the line of stationary traffic, as she didn't appear to brake or slow the vehicle. Now, as part of the crash investigation, the police checked her phone, discovered that she'd not only taken a selfie at the wheel, but she'd also sent a message to her friend that read, "I'm driving and half asleep." The timestamps on the phone showed that she'd opened the Facebook app at 12:35 and 34 seconds, closed it again at 12:36 and 44 seconds, so just over 1 minute later, and the first call to the emergency services was made at 12:36:54. So literally just seconds after she closed the app. Now, during the trial, the driver of the car denied these offences, claiming the text to her friend actually meant that she was bored, not tired. Now, frankly, it hardly matters what it was, because it was clearly the distraction of the phone. That's the conclusion of the police, that it was the phone use that set up the crash. But it's also an illustration of why danger never goes away when we stop on a motorcycle. It's always a two-way thing. And I'll come back to this at the end of the show. Right, now, following a unanimous vote by MAG UK National Committee, MAG has resigned from the Federation of European Motorcycle Associations with immediate effect, citing its complete lack of confidence in FEMA and its belief that FEMA no longer represents the interests of motorcyclists. Now, MAG cited its unhappiness with what the press release described as FEMA's gutless attitude to forced electrification. The press release says MAG's repeatedly expressed its concerns about the gap between what they say are the clearly stated views of ordinary motorcyclists and FEMA policy. MAG and FEMA surveys of riders have independently confirmed bikers' overwhelming opposition to any ban on the sale of petrol-powered motorcycles. Now, MAG remains open to working with any and all organisations faithfully representing riders' interests by continuing to fight forced electrification. Make of that what you will. Oh, Sue said, really enjoyed my course with you. Thanks, Kevin. Thank you, Sue. That's very kind of you to say so. So that's for all the rest of you to read. Kevin says news of rider blameless fatalities are always unsettling and sad. Can't agree more. And we have Jeff looking in as well. Hello, good morning, Jeff. Nice to see you too. Right, okay, so what do I think of that MAG decision? Well, personally, I think pulling out of European organisations, believing that what happens in Europe no longer matters to us, is a mistake. For example, there have been a number of locations over the last few years which have implemented motorcycle bans. Now, either outright bans, or in the case of an announcement back in January in Lower Saxony, in Germany, this noise restriction was set so low as to basically make motorcycles a target for police action. Now, since Austria and Switzerland have enacted local noise bans on bikes, including at least one which totally logically actually also included electric motorcycles, it's always a mistake, I think, to believe that what happens there won't happen here. I've talked about how what happens in London will happen eventually out in the sticks in the UK. People dismiss what happens as not relevant because it isn't happening to them immediately. But there's certainly been talk about banning motorcycles from national parks at weekends and on holidays, and there are definitely proposals for noise cameras to go up in several locations. I believe they're already in operation in Sussex or Hampshire. I can't quite remember where it was. But there is good news from this project in Lower Saxony. The press release from the district administration announced earlier this week that, quote, noise break route closures will be suspended. The planned route closures, which the district council decided on January the 26th, 2024 as part of the motorcycle noise pilot project, will be suspended. So the negative attitude of the ministry responsible for technical supervision has been confirmed in further discussions. So I'm not quite sure what that means, whether somebody on high has stamped down on the regional government. It does sound a little bit like it, but whatever. It is good news for bikers if you want to go to Lower Saxony. Right, okay, so don't forget, if you are enjoying these shows, do ask questions, do drop me a line, anything you want to say. I'm always happy to try to answer. I will try to get back to you during the show if I possibly can. If I can't, I will respond afterwards. Right, are motorcycle insurance costs beginning to fall after reaching an all-time high? Well, that's what MCN claimed. I don't know whether it's true or not. They cited skyrocketing insurance premiums in 2023, continue a trend of 2 years of price hikes. And they say that data taken from the latest Confused.com price index shows that costs for all vehicle insurance reached an all-time high in December. Now, I'm not sure it's just 3 years of price hikes. My insurance has gone up every single year from about 2010 right through to last year. And it's risen by around 600%. Way beyond anything I sort of charge for my training courses. They haven't gone up 600% in that time by any stretch of the imagination. And I actually now pay considerably more than the average for my insurance, if MCN's figures are to be believed. And I haven't had a claim since 1979. The ABI, Association of British Insurers, they say insurers have had to deal with a 35% yearly increase in automotive theft-related cost. Unless that is across the board, cars as well as bikes, I find it hard to believe that applies to motorcycles without some more robust data anyway, since most bikes stolen are actually inexpensive 125s and scooters. More believable is the ABI statement that there's been a 43% value rise in the cost of replacing written-off vehicles compared with 5 years ago, and a 32% hike in overall repair costs. And part of this problem is electric cars, which are many are essentially irreparable after a fairly minor impact because the battery pack gets damaged. And I'm sure one of the problems for bikes is that they're being written off when they have repairable or cosmetic damage, thanks to eye-wateringly expensive new parts. And it's hard to see how, that makes sound commercial sense for the insurance companies. They're just passing on the cost to the end user, but us who have to pay for the insurance. But basically, you're just feeding that money straight to the manufacturer. It just doesn't make sense to me, and I can't help but think that a new way of looking at insurance, by giving riders the opportunity to opt for lower cost repairs using decent used or even pattern parts, and actually spending money on getting the bike repaired rather than spending vast amounts of cash on, say, I don't know, replacement fairing part, for example. I think that many would accept that as a way of keeping certainly older bikes on the road. My insurance is due, as I said, in the very near future, so if it does go down by some miracle, I will let you know. Right, okay. Don't forget the show goes out Wednesdays and Sundays at 11. It's usually live, occasionally recorded, and Sunday's show will be a recorded show this coming week because I will be delivering a presentation that day up in Cambridge. Got busy couple of weeks actually with presentations in Cambridge and then Devon and also in Cornwall, so I'll be travelling widely to deliver my talks. If you want to book a talk, drop me a line. Right, now, with a bit of luck, I have got the right photo up at least for this particular story. I have no idea what's gone wrong with the photos this morning. They're all out of order. There it is. That is the ARC Vector. And the bad news is that this UK-based electric motorcycle manufacturer, ARC V Limited, has gone into liquidation. ARC are the second e-bike manufacturer to collapse this year, following the Swedish electric motorcycle manufacturer Cake. Although it only just popped up on my newsfeed, it seems that ARC kept this fairly quiet. They filed an extraordinary resolution to wind up on March the 19th, and the court named a voluntary liquidator the same day. Now, it's believed that just 11 motorcycles had been delivered at the time of the bankruptcy filing in March, including one, of course, high profile, to actor Ryan Reynolds. But according to the reports filed at Companies House on March 11th, ARC V had assets of around £30,000, which is peanuts basically, owed just under 1 million, of which half appears to be owed to company creditors, mostly suppliers, I'm guessing. Now, this isn't the first time that ARC have hit the skids financially, so here's a quick timeline of what ARC have been doing. Now, ARC was the brainchild of one Mark Truman, a former Jaguar Land Rover engineer. It was founded as a startup in 2018 with the vision of creating high-end, high-performance electric motorcycles, which were said to redefine the industry. His mission was not just to, quote, electrify motorcycles, but, quote, to explore what an electric performance motorcycle could be. Now, as a startup, ARC raised around 1 million initially via crowdfunding, reports say, and a prototype electric motorcycle, the Vector. It was shown off at the EICMA motorcycle show in Milan in Italy in October 2018. Now, the claims for the bike were fairly extraordinary. It was said to have a 125 mile per hour top speed and a 270 mile per hour range, and it would weigh just 220 kilograms, cost £485 with a 16.8 kilowatt hour battery and be capable of recharging in 40 minutes. Now, many people, myself included, didn't think those numbers added up, even at the suggested starting price of £90,000. Now, ARC gained an injection of funding and expertise when it announced a partnership with Jaguar Land Rover's venture capital fund, In Motion Ventures, in 2019. However, Jaguar Land Rover soon pulled out, and with nothing yet built, the company went into administration the same year. Now, Truman bought the assets, relaunched the company under the new name of ARC V Limited, and with that prototype under development, ARC claimed the delivery of a limited production run of 399 bikes would begin in 2020. The company actually came out of administration in 2021. Delivery of the first customer bikes was said to be imminent, but the shipping date slipped first to January 2022, then midsummer 2022. And by then the price had risen significantly too, to around £120,000. But at least the prototype was now getting some track testing time, so there was some progress. ARC also claimed to be exploring opportunities to expand its product lineup beyond the single model, the Vector, with additional models and variants to cater to a wide range of customers. Now, in 2023, ARC claimed to be continuing to innovate in the electric motorcycle space, focusing on advancements in battery tech and electric motor performance, and that would be thanks to backing from the UK government. Now, Truman also revealed in November that the company had supplied actor Ryan Reynolds with a custom-made ARC Vector, and that this had sent interest in the electric motorcycle manufacturing company into overdrive, and I'll come back to this in just a minute. Now, even as late as this year, press releases from ARC continued to talk up the firm's prospects, describing the company's plans to expand beyond the UK to establish itself as a global leader in electric motorcycles and to build key markets in Europe, North America and Asia. So, how did things go? Well, rather predictably, ARC have a YouTube channel, and it has a glossy video on it, and I'm just going to put the link up where you can watch it. There it is. It's still up and live, and you can watch it if you want to. And whilst the company always talked a good talk, I'm actually wondering from that YouTube channel how much interest there really was in their product. Now, that video, which I've just given you the link to, it went up in January. By yesterday, including my own visit, it had received just 872 views. The channel itself has just 98 subscribers. That's a fifth of the number that the Survival Skills channel has, and I don't think I'm particularly well supported. So does it show how out of touch ARC were with the potential buying public? I do realise that YouTube's not the entire marketing world, but combined with their balance sheet, quite how ARC this spring were planning on becoming a global leader really baffles me. I'd certainly be interested in any comments that you might have on that particular story. Right, now onto a bike of sorts. Now, 4 years after the sudden boom in micro-mobility during the COVID lockdown, and I'm just about over my latest bout, by the way, the road legal e-step scooter has finally appeared on our roads, and here it is. That's it. As the advertising says, the Swiftigo GT500 is the first UK road legal stand-on moped, and it will apparently transform your journey because it's built for on-road riding in the UK. Okay, so what makes it different from the usual run-of-the-mill step scooters? Now, first of all, not entirely obvious from the picture, but you get big 16-inch wheels and they have proper pneumatic tyres. And you get full dual suspension at front and rear. The suspension is also adjustable, and one review remarked on how stable the bike felt. You get proper dual circuit brakes too, although there's no word on whether the machine is fitted with ABS or CBS. I would guess neither from the reports. There are full high and low front lights, although looking at the spec they don't look particularly bright. Indicators with a hazard warning function and a full brake and tail light, plus a horn and a mirror and a number plate as standard. You get a wide footboard. The battery is an LFP construct, which is said to be safer than the batteries fitted to most electric scooters and electric bicycles. Excuse me. You also get a rear hub motor, 500 watts, pushes the bike to top speed of about 24 miles per hour, 38 kph, which would mean it would go with the flow in the 20 limit, although it's still a few miles per hour down on a typical restricted moped. The twist and go throttle has 5 go modes: eco, mid, high, hill climber, and the speed limited 15.5 mile per hour mode. Well, I'm not quite sure what that's for. And you get a kill switch. The battery range, with dual batteries, you can only fit 1 or 2 batteries to it, is claimed to be a maximum 25 miles or 40 kph per charge, and it can be fast charged, which is said to cost just 16p. You also get built-in front and rear pannier racks. The rear end looks remarkably like a sort of standard bicycle rack, actually. They can carry 20 kilograms of cargo, which probably means you can fit your laptop, your waterproofs, and a whacking great padlock on board. Maximum rider weight is it's quite light, actually, 120 kilograms, 255 pounds, which is going to rule out most NFL players. Since it's certified to the L1E vehicle category, riders will need to be 16 plus. They will need to hold a valid license, and they will need a current CBT certificate and insurance, and they will need to wear a helmet on it. Alright, so what does it look like folded up? Because that's the other big selling point for this thing. I'll just again zoom in on that. The frame is steel. The stem is alloy. It folds down. It also has height adjustment for the bars, incidentally. Features some motorcyclists could do with. It's also foldable. The stem twists 90 degrees left or right to allow you to store it, so you can see the bars sort of go down to one side. And though it's much heavier than a bicycle, my own mountain bike is about 12 kilograms. This weighs roughly 3 times that, 34 kilograms, 55 pounds. That should mean you can manhandle it into a hallway fairly easily, or down a side passage, even if you probably don't want to be carrying it up 3 flights of steps. Now, there's also a non-road legal Swiftigo G500, which is speed limited 15.5 miles per hour, 25 kph, presumably in the prospect of the government finally allowing public step scooters to be ridden on the road in the same way as the current rental schemes operate. But as usual, I don't really see this as a car replacement, as one reviewer suggested. I wouldn't mind popping to Sainsbury's on something like this for a mini shop, but it can't seat 2, and you can't go more than short hops. And of course, you also have to ensure that you can stop it being nicked the first time you use it. The very fact it weighs just 34 kilos means that, you know, even if you sort of put a padlock through the wheels, somebody can just pick it up and walk off with it. And then there's the big problem. It's the wallet battering price of £3,500. Now, you can buy a Honda SH125i, one of the best selling sort of scooters, for exactly the same price. And whilst they can't match the cost of the electric top-up, they do sip E10 at the rate of about 150 miles to the gallon, 4.5p per mile if you prefer, or about 100p to cover the same 25-mile distance as the Swiftigo covers for 16. So it's 5-6 times more expensive, but it's hardly going to break the bank. And here's the irony, really, because what I think that they have done is actually simply recreate the old Honda Express here. You know, I think that the whole thing would be better with an optional seat, and if they did that, then and pedals rather than the footboard. I mean, this is basically what they've reinvented. They've just added a battery, taken away the motor. So that's the Honda Express of the early 1980s. I don't know what they would cost now, whether there is equivalent. But yeah, there we go. That's my thinking on that. Right, we have a couple of comments come in. Sue says you only have to go to Brighton to see that electric bike scooter riders take even less notice of the law than cyclists. It's not exactly good here either. I mean, the IAM described it as the Wild West the other day. Right, okay, and finally then on to the in-depth session at the end of the show, which again I have lost the graphic for. I don't know where that's gone. Never mind, I can live without it. Today I'm going to talk about the need to watch your six, as the Americans call it, when slowing or stopping. Why it's so crucial to our safety. Now, some years ago, I was in Luxembourg and the car ahead of me stopped very unexpectedly. The driver got confused by road priorities at a junction, and she gave way to a motorcycle coming from her right, when actually she had priority and should have carried on. Now, I hit the brakes and stopped, but then I heard the telltale squeal of skidding tyres, and a moment later my own motorcycle was hit from behind. Now, fortunately it wasn't a heavy impact, but I wasn't able to catch the bike before it toppled over to the left, so it landed on my absolutely brand new spotless stainless steel exhaust can on the way down, and the front wheel was also pushed into the car bumper, which broke the car in front's tail light, and as the front wheel twisted, my headlight impacted the rest of the bumper on the car, so it broke my headlight. Now, I was able to pick the bike up right away. The three-way discussion between the French driver in front of me who caused the collision and the Luxembourger who'd hit me from behind was a bit of an interesting one, and you know, it's not uncommon. There was a big debate on one of my bike forums just a year or so back. A rider literally just picked up a brand new, no, it wasn't brand new. It was as new, an immaculate used Aprilia Tuono V4. He barely got any distance on the way home before his newly purchased bike ended up wedged in a car grille and written off. Now, ultimately, he wasn't hurt either. So, unlike the tragic accident I mentioned at the top of the show involving that German motorcyclist Tobias Durst, now I know that some people will say that I'm victim blaming, but the fact is that if we are hit from behind, it's still a two-to-tangle crash. That means there are strategies that are available to us to avoid being caught out, and it's genuinely rare that we can honestly say there was nothing I could do about this. So here's the first big mental switch we all need to make. As soon as we detect a hazard in front of us that is going to make us slow down, then we are dealing with the threat from that hazard, and that means the risk is no longer in front of us, not the significant risk anyway. Now the significant risk moves behind us, because what we cannot do is control the driver behind, and that means our focus of attention needs to move away from what's going on in front to what's going on behind. So this means three things. We need to take effective rear observation before we start to decelerate, so we have a general awareness of the situation around us. As we begin our deceleration process and as we continue to slow down, we need to maintain rear observation. This is where the sort of mirror signal maneuver approach that the DVSA teach to new drivers and riders is so wrong. You don't just make one check and then go ahead and do what you're going to do and assume that nothing will change behind you. You must monitor what's happening behind you to ensure that everybody else has actually taken notice of what it is you're doing. So if we are slowing down, we need to be absolutely certain that the vehicle behind is slowing down too. And then when we've stopped, the risk doesn't go away. We must ensure we know what's happening behind to ensure that we don't get run into from the rear. So those are the three stages. So let's focus on some specifics. The first thing is, how do we let the driver behind know we are slowing down? Well, it's fairly simple here. For many years there was an unfortunate tendency in advanced riding circles. I know I come on about this regularly and talk about it, but there was this feeling that somehow by using the brakes it was somehow a sign of poor riding. The idea was that a rider should be able to use acceleration sense and just roll on off the throttle to adapt to their speed to a hazard. But the brake light is there for a reason. It's to warn drivers behind you're slowing down. And believe it or not, and I know some riders won't believe me on this, I was actually told by a Rossborough examiner some 30 odd years ago that the brake light should not be used as a warning, which is barking mad. What in God's name is it for then? Now that was when I was a direct access trainer and I was encouraging riders to use the brakes and to illuminate the brake light whenever they were slowing down. I failed to understand his thinking back then. I still have no idea why he thought what he did even now. Fortunately, there has been a general move away from this sort of deliberate no brakes approach to riding, but there are still riders who do deliberately practice it. And unfortunately, the current popularity of big twins means that there are riders who don't consciously think about this, but are exploiting the fact that their bikes do generate a lot of engine braking. It was something actually I mentioned to my trainee Andy while we were out on the road the other week. Now, the trouble is that these riders often forget that if they shut the throttle, the bike decelerates quite suddenly, and it's quite disconcerting to a following driver because when the bike slows so quickly, it's suddenly coming back towards the following driver very, very quickly indeed. Sometimes it can be difficult to spot the deceleration of a motorcycle if the rider simply rolls off the throttle. So we don't have to apply the brakes hard, but getting the brakes light on does offer a warning to the following drivers. Now, just one proviso, motorcycle brake lights often aren't particularly bright or effective. They are often just single bulb, and they may not be visible if there is bright lights in front of us, either oncoming headlights, lots of people are using those of course in daytime now, or worse if the sun's low on the horizon. Even with a wet road with the sun low, it can be glaring. And this is where the old-fashioned arm signal comes in useful. It's an alternative or a supplement to a brake light. Now, next, we must monitor what's happening when slowing. I've already mentioned that sort of a mirror signal maneuver approach. We must go beyond that. One mirror check is not enough. We must repeatedly check the mirrors to know what's going on behind. Be careful if the queue that you're slowing for isn't where it would normally be. Many rear-end crashes happen on roads where drivers and riders simply aren't anticipating the need to stop, such as when they come across temporary lights or a queue caused by a broken down or slow-moving vehicle. It sounds like this was the situation in the crash I mentioned at the top of the show. It sounds like the rider had stopped for roadworks. Maybe the driver knew that road well. I don't know. And if so, maybe she simply wasn't expecting to find stopped traffic. So watch your rear very carefully if a queue isn't normally in that place, and if it's temporary lights, it's not normally there, so you may have reacted but the local may not be aware of it. For many years, well, not many years, but quite a few months when I was DAS training, I had to go over the same railway bridge most days to get to one of our test centres, and they were shoring up the bank on one side of the railway bridge, which had started to collapse. It took them quite a long time to do that. And they carefully put the traffic signal, stopping the traffic passing the roadworks, just below the level of the top of the bridge. So as you approached it, you couldn't see the traffic light in front of you. Worse, you couldn't see the first couple of cars that were actually stopped at the traffic light. So virtually every time we used that bridge, there was a new pile of broken glass and broken sort of indicators and things lying at the side of the road. So what I used to do was I used to sit visibly on top of the bridge where I could see behind me, but also people could see that I was stopped. Even if they didn't know why I was stopped, at least it generally slowed them down. Now, this comes back to what I was saying earlier to Kevin. When we do stop, don't stop in dangerous positions. Think about where you are going to pull up. Now, if we are square on behind the car that we've just pulled up in, and we are in neutral and we've mentally switched off, it's going to take us some time, even if we are watching the mirrors, to return to a drive gear and actually get out of trouble if we spot a car coming up behind us. So what I tend to do when I'm coming up behind an unexpected queue, the first thing I try to do is not sit at the back of it. As just mentioned, sitting well behind in a visible place on top of the bridge. I can do the same on a bend. If I see a queue in a bend, I can stop early and where I can be seen. So I've got space to run forward if something comes up quick behind me and isn't stopping. The second thing I can do is I may be able to filter down the outside of the queue and get to the front of it, and that way basically I'll let somebody else take the hit in a car if things go wrong. My third and final option, in the UK at least, is to sit tight on the near side. Most people, when they see the back of a queue in front of them, will swerve to the right. In the UK, they'll try to get down the outside of the queue. And at least if I'm on the very near side, if the worst comes to the worst and my bike is going to become a sandwich filler, then I can actually jump physically off the bike and into the hedge. I actually had to do that once on a bicycle. The bicycle ended up run over by a articulated lorry which hadn't seen a queue in front of me. So what we're doing here is we are trying to make sure that we are giving ourselves some options to get out of trouble if things go wrong. But it all starts with understanding that we do have options, that we are not simply mentally switched off at the back of a queue and thinking nothing can go wrong because I'm not moving. As the tragic accident at the top of the show showed, it can go badly, badly wrong. So we do have things that we can do. So hopefully that's answered Kevin's questions again. Right, so before I round off the show, we have a couple of comments. The LV motorcycle insurance, who have, yes, they pulled out, of course, sort of motorcycle insurance. They used to say they may use non-OEM parts of the same or better quality, and yeah, 100% hike last year. Appalling, isn't it? Some bike insurers now not accepting riders over 75. That's interesting and alarming. H2 does not help in terms of us stopping when drivers don't anticipate us doing so. Sorry, not quite sure what you mean there, Kevin. And Kevin says my catalogue of collision experiences is vast. Excellent. Yeah, trust me, there are a couple of others in there as well. The first time I was hit from behind was literally just a couple of weeks into my motorcycling career. I was sat on my motorcycle riding through Maidstone for one of the first times, stopped at a queue behind a red light, and I was on my little 125 Honda. It had the obligatory Rickman rack on the back, which, if you remember, had the sort of the sloping arms which came up to the level of the rack, and I gradually felt the bike's back end being lifted off the tarmac. And when I looked in the mirror, what I found was that there was a French couple sitting in a 2CV who were equally entranced by the rather lovely Bishop's Palace on the far side of the Medway, who had rolled very, very slowly and very gently into the back of my bike, and my rack had slid up on the sloping bonnet of the 2CV. So that was particularly funny, but fairly pretty harmless. Just kept the bike upright, didn't fall off. There was a slightly less pleasant collision that was up in London. They had just put a red light traffic camera in on a set of lights. I stopped on the amber. The driver behind me initially put his foot down and then realised that I was stopping, and then hit the brakes, and he slid into the back of me. Fortunately, again, I kept the bike upright, but the back wheel of the bike had gone straight through his plastic bumper, and it was actually wedged in the sort of the impact absorbing material. So it actually took me about 10 or 15 minutes to disengage my bike from his car, which was fairly frustrating. No damage to the bike, but he obviously had a repair bill to face. So right, okay, yeah, plenty of rear end experience, and every one of them reminded me, don't look at what's in front, look at what's going on behind. Yeah, right, okay, so highway code, right, Kevin says highway code rule H2 for pedestrian crossings. I meant, yes, okay, gotcha. Yes, the fact that drivers are stopping. You also have to be careful when you go abroad because you find very different approaches to dealing with pedestrians in different countries. You really have to be careful and watch for that. And Sue says the French driver 2CV crash is funny. Right, okay, thank you very much indeed. That will do for today. Don't forget, if you get a moment, do subscribe and like to the channel. The buttons are all where they usually are. If you do like the show, do tell other people about it. All helps me grow the channel, because I got chatty at the end of this one. It's been quite a long show. I didn't expect it to be this long. And don't forget, there is the newsletter. If you miss anything during the week, you can always catch up by subscribing to my Substack newsletter, and you'll get one email once a week with all the links in that. Right, that is it for today. So thank you again to everybody who's looked in. Thanks to everybody who's commented, had something to say. Always appreciate the feedback. I shall be back on Sunday, but don't forget, it will be a recorded show because I will be headed off into the wilds of Cambridgeshire to deliver a talk to a group out there. So I'm Kevin Williams. This has been Elevenses. Thank you once more for looking in, and hopefully see you for the next show.